to series of online contacts, including Coursera and digital courses, to polish their skills. This mapping will help to identify and develop patterns in the use of ICT in curriculum development delivery at all levels of education. Also, I expect the conference to address the millennial development goals and sustainable development in education that affects language learning. Once again, this is I welcome you to Laro, very peaceful environment, peaceful town, and especially the Federal Polytechnic Laro, the best polytechnic in Nigeria, and ranking second best polytechnic in Nigeria. I find time to do that and reflect the status of this peaceful environment, and I want to wish you a very beautiful celebration. That looks
of this institution, the council, I hereby declare this conference.
Thank you, sir, for recognizing our place in the society as teachers of English language. We are going to quickly call for the opening remarks. Okay, remarks first by the Dean School of SMS, Federal Polytechnic Ilaro. Thank you. If we are behind the schedule.
Thank you so much. The rector, the cerebral professor, I am highly honored to be given this opportunity to talk to these highly cerebral users of language. When I was called upon that to give remarks, I asked myself that how possible will I be able to give the remark in the midst of the owners of the language? It is impossible to think without language. So it is practically impossible to pass information from one person to another without the line of language. Human communication is vital for safety and survival. I am an accountant by profession. In this polytechnic, we have engineers, we have environmentalists, we have scientists. How will it have been possible without using language to communicate in various disciplines? Therefore, English language belongs to Indo-European family language, a language family extending from Indian to Western Europe. The present modern-day English has been influenced greatly by several other languages such as Anglo-Saxon, Latin, French, and German, all of which interacted with Old English as far back as 55 BC till about 1066 AD. Though these interactions, the pronunciation, grammar, and vocabulary of modern English have been evolved. Today, English is an international language that we speak across the globe. Permit me to tell you that there are so many uses of languages. Use of languages, like I said earlier on, educational use, political use, religious use, economic use, use in mass communication, use as a unifying factor. Because no matter idea you have, you must be able to communicate it in a particular language. So, just like our indefatigable rector has said, the theme of the conference is very apt. In fact, it meets the demands of the economy. So I am highly excited to be here and to be part of this particular event. And I know that the deliberation that we are going to come up with at the end of the day will develop the economy, will move Nigeria as a country forward. I want to congratulate the organizer, the professor. I want to really appreciate you for you to be in this polytechnic. So God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for the opening remarks. We want to quickly listen to our president, Professor Adebayo, after which we are going to have a group photograph so we can excuse the rector.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, the rector, deans, deputy rector, the registrar's representative, HODs, and our friends, and of course, conferees who are joining us in Zoom. Welcome to the 15th edition of our ELTT conference themed Innovations and Transformations in English Language Teaching and Learning for Sustainable Development, taking place in the Federal Polytechnic in Lauro, Ogun State. With English as the most commonly learned second language in the world, and as an international language of scientific communication, a series of innovations and transformations in its teaching and learning should engage the interests of teachers, researchers, policymakers, and governments, particularly those from developing economies. Aside the linguistic hegemony and imperialism of the English language, the 21st century has witnessed unprecedented advancement in technology and ICTs. This development has led to the fourth industrial revolution that advanced nations are currently deploying in all sectors of their lives, particularly their educational institutions. Computers made their mark into the educational sector in the early 90s, and their influence in recent times has increased exponentially, especially with the fast evolution of technology and web-based applications. Advancement associated with the fourth industrial revolution has completely revolutionized pedagogic practice, leading scholars to reimagine the future of education on the African continent and sub-Saharan Africa, a sector bedeviled by inequities and unequal access to technology. Educators are left with no choice, of course, than to tag along the rest of the world, especially as the COVID-19 pandemic brought massive disruption in our lives and dictated to us the need to change our pedagogic practice, way of life, and thinking. Permit me to mention that the theme of the conference is very apt. We are indeed witnessing disruptions in all facets of our life, and the challenge thrown at us can only be tackled if we fully deploy the forces of innovations and transformations in our teaching and learning of English, and of course, all the subjects. All efforts in this direction must be fully explored. This way we can be keeping in line with global best practices. It is my belief that this conference will be rewarding, especially with the way it has been planned. It is a combination of a conference and a workshop, and the workshop will allow for practical hands-on sessions where new skills will be acquired and thorny issues identified and resolved. Conferees are assured of an interesting time at the ELTT conference. This conference will provide excellent opportunity for participants to exchange ideas, establish research relations with colleagues, find partners for future research collaborations, learn about current trends in language teaching and learning. Now let me at this point talk about the association organizing this conference. Natresl is an acronym for National Association of Teachers and Researchers in English as a Second Language. The association provides a forum for the exchange of ideas, classroom and research experience for language teachers, and platform for networking and professional development. It is committed to improving English language learner outcomes by providing professional development through in-service training for teachers, creating platforms for teacher mentoring, and encouraging the use of learning technologies and digital resources for teachers. In addition, the association is concerned with equipping learners with requisite 21st century skills that will facilitate communication and the sharing of research outcomes. You'll find us at our URL, www.natresl.org. Now let me invite you to enjoy the warmth and the friendliness of our hosts and the serene environment of the Federal Polytechnic Ogun State, our host. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma. We want to quickly take a group photograph before we take more goodwill messages. Please, sir. I also want our professors to step out. Piero, could you please direct that? Thank you, sir. Ma, we don't know whether you have something to say to us, ma.
Standing on the existing protocol, I just want to congratulate the organizers of this conference. I believe we are happy in Ilaro to have you here, and we hope that you will enjoy your stay here. And I wish all participants a nice celebration. Congratulations.
Thank you, ma. We go on straight to introduction of keynote speaker. Dr. Olushere, are you ready for us? Okay. Could you please come forward to take the citation of the keynote speaker?
Good morning, everyone. I want to play a very fast one so that I will not offend anybody. There are professors here, so one has to be very careful. So I want to cling onto the established protocol as was done by Dr. and the compare. That is safe enough. Well, let me say this before I go into the citation proper. That the citation of Professor Egbokare is not what I am about to read. It's not even a summary. It's a précis. So that because if we have to do justice to the citation of Professor Egbokare, I think we will stay here for the whole of the day. So permit me that we have just outlined the essential points, achievements of Professor Egbokare. Professor Francis Oyesagbede Egbokare was born on September 22nd, 1962 in Afuse, Edo State. He started his elementary education at St. John's Primary School, Igama, and later proceeded to St. Gilbert Primary School, Agenebode, in Edo State. He was at Otaru Grammar School, Auchi, between 1973 and 1978, and Edaiken Grammar School, Okuaibe, Benin City, from 1978 to 1979. For secondary education, he obtained a Bachelor of Arts degree in linguistics from the University of Benin in 1983, after which he proceeded to the University of Ibadan for his master's and doctoral degrees. Professor Egbokare started navigating the waters of the academia as an assistant lecturer in the Department of Linguistics and African Languages of the prestigious University of Ibadan in 1985. He rose through the ranks to become a senior lecturer and subsequently a full professor in the same department in 1999, becoming one of the youngest professors in the university at the age of 37. I think that deserves a round of applause. Professor Egbokare is a thoroughbred scholar, an academic linguist, and a prolific writer who has over 100 publications in local and international journals. That's not a small feat. So if you want to clap, I think you need to clap very well. Textbooks and monographs to his credit. His research areas are in ethics, historical linguistics, and syntax. His column in Nigerian national newspapers under the title Praying Mantis focuses on education, politics, integrity in public service, faith, language, among others. Little wonder he was inducted into the Union of Campus Journalists, UCT, University of Ibadan in 2006. In collaboration with Professor R.P. Skiva, his teacher in the University of Benin, he has produced a 552-page dictionary of MI, his mother tongue, and 2 volumes of oral traditional narratives running into 1,261 pages. Professor Egbokare has received a number of distinctions. He was an Alexander von Humboldt Stinton Fellow at the University of Hamburg, Germany. Between 1996 and 1997, he was also a visiting scholar to Southern University of Edwardsville from 2002 to 2004. A key feature of his study service in the academia is helping to attract grants to UI at the University of Ibadan, notable among which is the role of principal investigator. His role as principal investigator / project leader in the $1.2 million grant awarded to the University of Ibadan Distance Learning Center over 9 years by the Dundee Trinity MacArthur Foundation. So there is money even in English.
He is a seasoned administrator and has served in various committees within and outside the University of Ibadan. He is a chair and member of boards and many professional organizations and institutions, among which are Chairman Proposal Implementation Committee, Proposal University, Proposal West Midland University, and member of boards to Council of African Languages Technology Initiative Center for Growth and Development, Institute of Development Association of Nigeria, Institute of Social Work, Nigeria, West African Languages Congress, and so on and so forth. He has also served as a member of Council of the University of Ibadan, Director of Open Distance Learning between 2004 and 2010, Branch Secretary, Editor and Resource President of TOASU. He is a consultant researcher and trainer in higher education. He has been fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Letters since 2012 and currently serves as the president of the academy. In 2010, he was shortlisted with 5 others vying to become the vice chancellor of the University of Ibadan. At this juncture, because the road to Ilaro can be very tortuous, so I didn't want to insult Professor Kotari by asking him to stand up. But now this is the last paragraph. I think he needs to stand up and remain standing. Sorry, sir. Okay. No, sir. Sorry, sir. I'm asking you to stand up, sir. Professor Francis Kotari has spent the last 35 years as a university teacher, researcher, activist, public commentator, and social critic. He has demonstrated a high level of integrity in his life and career, in addition to showing a commendable level of courage and service in the discharge of his responsibilities. He is married to Olanyinka Ekokari, and the union is blessed with children. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished audience, can you give a rising ovation to Professor Ekokari, a reputable scholar, a renowned scholar, a researcher past excellence, and a university teacher that is worthy of emulating. Thank you very much.
I think I can now sit down. Yes, I can hear you. All right, thank you very much. I usually don't like long citations, and I sent you a very short one, and I suspect you discarded that. So thank you very much. Let me begin by thanking Fola, the president, for giving me this invitation. I actually really wanted to be with you physically, but I've been indisposed lately, and but I'm glad that I'm able to join you online today. So please pardon me that I have not been able to be with you. It's usually different when you are there physically with everyone. I wish you all a very interesting conference, and I hope that you are able to make a difference. Now, I am going to be talking about widening cycle of meanings and understanding, and what is the implications for learning and teaching of English for Nigeria's development. But before I start, I want to let you know about a few opportunities. I don't know how many of you are aware of the TED Fund funding projects. I am currently chairman of the humanities subcommittees. I want to encourage you people that by the time the next advertisement is carried out, that it's an opportunity for you to get good funding for you to do work in the area of English language teaching. So I needed to just give you that very quickly, so that you can begin to form yourself into research groups and research networks across universities in a multidisciplinary way, in order for you to benefit from the funds. It's a very competitive one, but I can tell you that it's very objective. There is no man, and quite a number of people we don't even really know about have benefited because they submitted good proposals. If you then want me at any point in time to assist you with looking at your proposal, I will be very glad to do that. But I need to warn you that once I see your proposal, I'm not going to be able to assess it. So if it comes to me, I will have to recuse myself so that another person will assess it, because we are doing a blind assessment system. So thank you very much. I thought you should have that information. I also think that you should know, for instance, currently there is a program in UI, a bootcamp taking place now on the natural language processing. I think it's very critical also for what will come up later on as a diploma in natural language processing, the first in sub-Saharan Africa that I'm facilitating, and then of course the masters in computational linguistics is going to be very also important for the students, for students of English, to be part of this. Now let's go on to the real issue. I am sure that some of you will be curious. What is this widening circle of meanings and understanding? Well, I like to come from a different angle usually when I make presentations. And the whole idea basically is that you probably are not aware of a grammar war that is taking place now. And that the fact that some of the security problems that we are facing in Nigeria are actually problems of language, are not really problems of language, problems of communication, problems of convergence. And primarily because of the difficulties of elite convergence as a result of poor teaching and use of English language. So I'm going to focus on that. I can promise you that I'm not going to take your time, because a keynote is not supposed to be what do you call it, a lead paper presentation. It's supposed to help to stimulate the appetite for the conference. So I'm going to make it quite short. In the next 15-20 minutes, I should be done. Now, if we go on to the second slide, you will see that they projected the conference keynote there, a very good keynote, conference theme, which is very apt for this period. I'll move very rapidly to slide 3, which is a collage that I normally project in order for us to know that a lot of the problems of life is not actually problems that are outside of us. They are problems that are within us. And that when we look at making progress in life, we always look at discovering new landscapes, but the problem basically is for us to have new eyes. And in order for us to have that, we have to change our thinking. We have to change our thinking templates. And so that's why I use this collage always. And I'm always interested in looking at the different points of thinking as we go on. Now, if we now go to the introduction to background, I think I've done the courtesy. I looked at the theme of the conference. We are talking about innovations, transformations, English language teaching, English language learning, and then of course, sustainable development. Now, two things we need to avoid is the problem of legacy thinking that has overcrowded research today. What do I mean by legacy thinking? The idea that there is some solution out there that we must apply in here, and that we have to wait and outsource our thinking until we receive models and theories and tools and facilities from outside that we are unable to do anything. We always have to remember the issue of context, and that adaptation is the key to survival. That even when we borrow templates, borrow theories and so on, we have to learn also to adapt, because our experiences and the nature of our states and our context is different from the realities that we see out there. Every form of theory, methodology, and so on are adapted to particular circumstances and cultures that originate them. So we first of all have to start by critiquing and thinking clearly and finding a way out and finding solutions that will work for us. So having said that, what are the framing questions? Before we innovate, what are the framing questions? The questions are, what do we know about modern day Nigerian speaker of English? What are the classifications of the English language speaker learner? Do we have metadata about them, about the nature of the Nigerian English language speaker today? What are the varieties of English in Nigeria today? Do we know? To what extent is Nigeria still a multilingual nation? What will the language use mapping tell us as different from the linguistic situation in Nigeria? What is the achievement rate for English language in basic education? And how has this affected the general performance of Nigerians in terms of the school achievements and so on? How does this tie up with performance at other levels? what is the implication of the answers to this, to the teaching of English? Because if we can answer all of this, then we will begin to ask ourselves, how do we make a difference? What is the implication of understanding in a diverse polity? So I'm going to ask those questions. One fundamental question that we need to ask again is, why is it that it is increasingly difficult to share same meanings and interpretation once English is the medium of communication? Now, this is it. Whether you go to the National Assembly or the speech of the president, you will observe that it's either the person who made the speech is apologizing that the interpretation is different from what he intended, or the people, or that there are a million interpretations out there. Some are very ridiculous. Even in watching international media, I'm beginning to see that there's a general collapse in our understanding of shared English meanings. And something has gone wrong in the world. And perhaps it is because of the desiccation of the teaching of English language in the way that was once done. We have to go and review. Why is it difficult for us now to converge in terms of meanings and understanding? I have a feeling now that we are no longer speaking English mainly in Nigeria, that we are transliterating English. And that what we call the Nigerian English probably does not exist anymore in the form that we used to understand, but that what the elites used to have as a language, Nigerian English, that enabled them to converge and to understand one another, is probably now lost, so that there are so many varieties and versions of English, which has become very problematic, and is affecting the ability of our nation to hold together as one. Now, I don't want to dwell into the whole business of the role of English in Nigeria's national development, because we know very well. And in fact, the speech of the Dean was very good, succinct in highlighting the importance of the English language. We know about the issue of promoting understanding, trust between peoples when we use a common language. And the best way to communicate with people is to utilize a language which brings out the best of them. And then where the linguistic situation creates communication impediments or leaves room for ambiguities and misinterpretation, there will be consequences. English is our official language. It's the language of business, the language of science, the language of bureaucracy. It's the only opportunity for elite convergence in Nigeria. In other words, once you want to belong to the elite group, you have to use English, you have to speak English, you have to learn English. No matter what our ideological dispositions are against it, we have to remember that there are 500 languages in Nigeria, 250 ethnic groups. The population dynamics in Nigeria has turned the classroom into a diversity hotbed. As we move from face-to-face to digital learning modes, demographics and needs of the language learner has moved from variable to volatile. The language teacher needs to adapt, but they cannot adapt blindly. So there are a number of questions for the language teacher in Nigeria, which I hope that the current conference will address. These are issues relating to research, curricula, content, methodology, and delivery modes. Now, let me just quickly mention about the content issue. When you develop content for teaching English, often the background of the learner, the linguistic background which he brings into the learning situation is never factored into it. And I wonder whether some of these contents are developed in abstraction of the actual classroom situation. So what happens? How do we remedy some of this situation? This is opportunity for innovation. I, as a speaker of AMI, I come into this learning of English with a different set of impediments as a result of interference of my AMI language. And that is different from Yoruba and Hausa. But we come and approach the learning situation with the same content for each and every one. So, but the digital environment now creates opportunities for variability, for us to address the learner needs, and of course also for the teacher to be able to adeptly develop tools to understand exactly how he or she can handle the learning situation. Now, that brings me to the idea that I raised initially, that there's a communication emergency in Nigeria. And this emergency is tied to the use of English. There is the problem of limited English proficiency. There is grammar and spelling wars. There is an alarming rate of diminishing competence in indigenous languages, shrinking of hitherto regional lingua francas due to a myriad of factors. We have a hardening of ethnic boundaries and loss of bilingualism, which conspire to undermine convergence by expanding the space of meanings and interpretations. So this is why I am talking about the widening cycle of meanings. Because before we understand what is happening, bad English or poor English or inability to use good English or to have a common English language and to teach English well will create for us a serious problem of disintegration. Nobody thinks about disintegration in Nigeria and thinks about English language. But I think it's one of the things that we should look at, that there is a problem that's arising as a result of the English language unable to bind together the elite so that they are no longer able to have the elite consensus. Now, so that just brings us to the next slide, which is the grammar wars. And then, of course, we are aware of that basically, you may disagree with this, but I am kind of, this is hyperbole, actually. But I just want to let you know that there's a real problem, especially with the use of social media now. If you go to any social media site, or you read even conventional newspapers now, the respect for the rules of English has collapsed completely. And that's why some of these ordinary people will say we are blowing grammar. We are blowing grammar, we are not communicating. So English language is considered as too formalized by the ordinary people, but incomprehensible, lacking expression, incorporating too much grammar in local parlance. But the real idea basically of blowing grammar is that we are unable to communicate effectively, and that's raising a problem. Now, I just brought in Lagbaja and Fela's vernacular as a way to drive home some of these issues. I'm not going to read them for you, but it's there in the slide so that you can, at some point in time, go and look at it and see what Lagbaja and Fela were talking about when they talk about grammar and language. So I'll skip and go to slide 14. So is English language teaching such a necessity, or is it simply something we do as a matter of course? It's a fundamental question you want to ask yourself. Because I assume, and I believe that many individuals who are involved now are probably involved because they want to write and publish papers. But if they understand that the growth and the development of Nigeria and the ability of the younger generation and the sustainability of our economic development is tied partially, if not completely, to the use of English language and the teaching of English language, probably we will see a different approach to it. One of the things I always tell people is that all understanding is interpretation, and all interpretation takes place in the medium of language that allows the object to come into words, yet at the same time, the interpreter's own language. The convergence of interpretation and understanding is complicated in a multilingual and multicultural environment like Nigeria. When we speak the same language, we go into the conversation with a belief that we share similar understanding. We also engage language teaching, believing that those before us are capacitated socially and are psychologically enabled for the learning experience. But this is not always the case. We are confronted with pathologies of form, content, and dispositions that threaten the learning outcomes, some with predefined results, such as stigma. So what are these shared language capacity? The mind is open, and the human genetics has potentially infinite combinatorial possibilities limited only by its grammar. Language similarly delimits this infinitude through its grammar. By this way, our idiosyncrasies and opportunities for personalized engagement with the world are limited and defined through linguistic pipelines, pathways, or spaces. Each language with its selection from the universal, which define the extreme outside limits of human reality. The point here is that language helps us prevent fractious interpretations and understanding of meanings and of the world out there. We therefore speak similar meanings through which we perceive our angle of the human world. What I want to emphasize here is the convergence opportunities provided by each language. The symbolic systems that integrate or interlink the meaning aspect moderated by grammar is defined within constrained spaces and pathways. Thus, we can identify pathologies, indesical forms, standards, and deviations. We need to pronounce words in a way that do not breach the boundaries of symbolic qualities and grammar. We need to sign or write in a way that ensures that we are able to converge. I was once a consultant to WAEC on oral English for many years. And then I was also a consultant to NTI. We're training people in oral English for many years. And my experience was, I noticed this, what we are experiencing today, I noticed a long time ago that we're gradually getting to a point where we just don't really care what's going on. Now, so the third level is deliberate sociocultural interposition as part of human organization of the world for the purposes of control, minimization of efforts, innovation, or human development. So this depends on what we see, we wish to call what we do to language when we ascribe social characteristics to them. Now, why do we prescribe standards? We prescribe standards, develop and deploy policies, or even give awards and recognitions that ultimately validate elite styles support social norms, or even set agendas, often in the name of quality. Sociocultural and pragmatic dynamics are not open-ended. There are rules and norms of language use. So I'm emphasizing rules and norms. And that when rules and norms break down, the classroom situation becomes an impossibility. It affects also the testing as well. Now, still, you don't need to pay attention to the ideological treatises in the foregoing. It is enough to know that we need to teach language in schools in the traditions of current understanding of learning and education. If we have to do this, we are limited by many reasons. If you being the fact that we cannot teach every language and their varieties, the shared capacity and resources are unfinanceable. Even if we want to, human competition makes such broad interpretation of equity unrealizable, even though we believe now that AI may solve the capacity issue. Now, for our purpose here, it should be clear that we need to teach language in order to sustain our capacity to maintain our interpretation and understanding. This becomes critical if you consider that English is the official language of a country of 200 million who speak over 500 languages in 2 different cultural settings. By being official, it is the language of business, bureaucracy, governance, education, technology, of everything and everyone that matters. We need a version of it where the forms and word of meanings and understanding gravitate around permitted extremities. We want to be audible, sound familiar, understand and interpret similar meanings for every other thing in our world to hang together. This is getting to be a challenge with new Englishes, subculture Englishes, the other stories, personal truths, and personal dispositions. So the real challenge, how do we map the second language factor into the teaching of foreign language teaching in a multilingual setting? How do we ensure that this diversity plays in the classroom and in the reality of the learner? How do we ensure that we take care of this? Is this real challenge factored into the curricula? Is it factored into the training? Is it factored into the research? Is it factored into the pedagogy, learning and teaching content? And in fact, is it factored into testing? Are we sensitive to the background of students as part of practice requirements? Even if answers to the foregoing questions are in the affirmative, is there enough research base to support resolving them? Do available content for English, teaching English, address learner needs, given the fractious linguistic situation? So what are the resolutions? Simple resolution. I'm not going to start to tell you because I'm sure you have another 1 or 2 days where you will discuss very important issues. I wish to suggest that a forensic needs map for teachers of English language has become obligatory to support the classroom. In addition, we should target content to reflect the needs thrown up by our diversity. We need to do this to narrow down the unending cycle of meanings, interpretations, and understanding that the use of the English language has become in Nigeria. Of course, you also know that the part of the problem of poor performance and achievement in sciences is also a language problem. It's not and I want to just tell you that one of the reasons that I lost interest in mathematics was that I was told that it was from a simultaneous equation. Say 4x plus 5y. And I was asking the lecturer, the teacher, what is x and y? He said, x and y are variables. My English was not, no, he said x and y, 4 oranges plus 5 mangoes. I was thinking of juice, while I said, but if you, how do you, are you going to crush them to make juice out of it? He said, no, x and y are variables. Of course, my English language was not up to understand what a variable is. That was how I lost interest. And then, of course, we need to take advantage of the digital opportunities and networks. So that's what brings me to as I start to conclude. And one of the problems is the knowledge silos. There is a lack of collaboration and isolationism. And this is promoted partly also for those of us who are in the university and tertiary system by the fact that collaboration is underplayed in research assessment for promotion. But we need to transcend that now. It's now the time. There's no meaningful, serious work that you can do now that you can do alone. The natural language processes work we are doing is made up of engineers, software individuals, computer scientists, people from communication, and people from linguistics across 3 countries. So that's so we must move away from the old logic of boundedness and boundaries. Old logic, we have to change with the new thinking. We have to go into the new logic of the age of knowledge, where knowledge is fluid, where ICTs, AI, and the whole concept of metaverse, big data, e-learning, machine learning, neural networks, collaboration, multidisciplinarities, and new spaces are changed. And then, of course, there are changing methodologies. This is the new reality that we live in a new world. And so what does this mean? It means that there is a need for clarity and adaptation. We need, and for us to have clarity and for us to be able to adapt, we need insight. We need a clear foresight. This association needs to have a strategic plan to map out the future. And that's what the whole, and to anticipate the future that is coming. And that's the whole idea of foresight. Then, of course, we need hindsight in order to know exactly how to learn from the past. Of course, with oversight mechanisms that will ensure that members of the association are doing what they need to do. Then, of course, the idea of clear-sightedness, keen-sightedness. And if we do all this, you avoid short-sighted decision-making and far-sighted interventions in terms of the challenges in Nigeria. The point I'm making basically now is time to come local, to use the global to solve the local problems. We need to begin to solve problems. If we don't solve problems, we'll just be pontificating without any results. So thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen, and I cherish the opportunity you have given to me. May God bless you all, and may you have a successful conference. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Prof. You can see that we're giving you a standing ovation here.
Thank you.
Before we let it go, we would like to take some questions. We understand those of us here, we're going to give us, two of us, the opportunity of asking Prof questions, and those who are joining virtually, they will also have the opportunity to. We are going to take two questions from those who are joining virtually. So I want those who are joining virtually to signify by raising up their hand so that they can have the first go. Okay, I can see someone. Please, could you unmute yourself and then ask your question? Please identify yourself, unmute yourself. Oh, Professor Esimaje is joining us from Benin. So, you have the space, man. Please ask a question. Unmute yourself, man. You are still muted. Professor Esimaje, you are still muted. Please unmute yourself and then ask your question. We can see that you are raising up your hand, man. But you need to press the unmute button on your screen so we can hear you. Okay, Ma, can you send a chat?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can you hear me now? Hello, can you hear me now? All right, thank you very much. I was having problems on muting because the message here is showing the host is not allowing participants to mute themselves. But I'm happy that I'm successful now. Thank you again. I want to thank Professor Francis Ebokare for this very, very exciting presentation on the topic of widening circles of meaning. Very interesting indeed. Very controversial as well, because we're looking at a situation where people argue for innovation, people argue for creativity in the use of language, people argue for the fact that our interpretation should depend on where we are looking from, what we want to see. and then what we want to highlight or spotlight. So, but then you are arguing that we should narrow down, you're recommending, one of your resolutions is that we'll narrow down the circles of meaning. And I wonder if that will not be stifling of creativity. Those in literature will definitely argue with you. Some persons in applied linguistics will also want to argue, while I understand that there is need for us to begin to think of having a singular discourse, of trying to look at issues, from one perspective. I think also that we need to understand that when you have many other perspectives, it makes the discourse very interesting. So that's one thing that I want to highlight. Then the other thing is that I'd like you to explain a little bit what you mean and how it can be achieved, what you mean by the forensic needs map for teachers in order to support the language classroom. So these two issues are what I'd like to highlight. The first one, a comment which you can react to, and the second one, a question which I'll be glad if you offer some clarification. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question from someone who has joined virtually. Is there anyone who has a question to ask from virtual participants? Okay, we take from most of us who are physically present here. Then we ask our questions.
Thank you very much. I think once again, let me join others to say that Professor Ebohari had actually invoked so many various things among us here, particularly in the use of English for development. And I'm happy because he also mentioned the fact that without the language we are talking about, language generally, it might be difficult for us, to get developed. Now my question is this, because during the talk, the presentation, you mentioned the fact that when we talk about the language of the elite, particularly as it relates to what we see or what we consider as being correct. My question is about when we talk about language variant, and when we also talk about the correctness of language, because in the issue of various Englishes, particularly you talk about Nigerian English, American English, and there is controversy that you might not be talking of the correctness of the use of language, but that you consider the acceptability, that is being understood by the majority, as you have mentioned, during your presentation. Now, how does an average classroom teacher get to use this language and teach the language in such a way that he will impart that the students will understand, that the student will use in his community, and that he can use internationally? Thank you.
Standing on the actually, I want to take off from where Prof ended. That correctness, that creativity, especially in this one aspect like technology.
Prof, I need to hear you. Prof, I can't hear you well. So can you?
I'm not a prof, sir. I don't want to time for impersonation. Hello, sir.
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right, sir. What I'm saying is that when we look at correctness and various Englishes that we have, especially trying to pinpoint it to creativity that technology offers, the creativity that literature offers, where exactly can we locate correctness amidst these various Englishes? Because they all have their different peculiarities. So where is correctness? Thank you.
All right.
Listen,
So,
we have
no, can you just let me take these ones before I'm becoming an old man now, so I forget before I forget these.
Okay, sir.
All right. So I would like to start with the issue of correctness, so that I'll then walk back to the other questions. The idea is that when we make prescriptions, it's an ideological decision. It has nothing to do with grammar, basically. But the practical realities of the day is that there has to be a certain level of prescription in order for us to be able to teach in the classroom. The Nigerian's fractures development, for instance, raises even the need for us to have, for content, for us to have the needs to be able to manage the classroom in such a way that there is a particular version of what we teach that will enable people to be intelligible when they speak the language. And then, of course, we enable them, especially this happens only with foreign languages, because our languages already imposes, if you look at any language that we learn, and that is the point that I'm making, is that our personal individual diversities are moderated by our language capacities. So that you speak Yoruba within a language area, within a Yoruba space. Pronunciation of Yoruba is within a Yoruba pronunciation space. The grammar of Yoruba is within a Yoruba grammar space. When you go outside of that space, the naive native speaker already knows by crossing that boundary that this is no longer Yoruba. So you don't need any person to teach you that you are violating the norms of the language. So that is why I said that the language itself frames the extent to which we can deviate, the extent to which we can break away. Innovations happen, and then the boundaries are stretched from time to time. And then you see that there is a widening. But then, of course, because it is shared and accepted and validated by the users of the language, so we have no problem, for instance, with literary creativity. You can still be creative. You can use the language in such a way, but even the creativity itself, the literary creativity, is within the acceptable spaces that are created by the language. So there is really no problem, for instance, of stifling creativity. I'm just saying that as different as we are, depending on the perceptual capacities that we have, the diversity of experience we have in the world, in order for us to experience and explain the world and share the world with other people, we use a language. That language in itself is a pipeline. That language in itself is a pathway. It does not allow all the possibilities that are possible in the world. Every language creates a space for the users of the language. And so when we learn a foreign language, we are trying to also operate within a certain space. But our own individual languages bring with it also factors that either enrich these spaces or limit them. So that's where what we need to do, for instance, is for an association like this to get to the point where, for instance, let's even know what is a Nigerian English. We have not even been able to define this Nigerian English, and that Nigerian English itself may not be actual English, but it can just be a standard form that has been accepted to be used in a classroom situation. It doesn't have to be a social form, but it can be a created form that we use in a class situation in order for us to be able to find convergence of the diverse experiences. I hope you are aware that there are individuals today who claim to be native speakers of English, but have never actually been out of this country. They speak no other language. They don't speak the indigenous language, but when you interact with them, you discover that they have language. I would say, for instance, that they really have no language because they have just a few vocabulary items that they use for social interaction. And beyond that, they can basically, they don't really have English as you know it. They don't have Nigerian languages as you know it. So and these are the group that Ruben Abati described as the expatriate Nigerians. And that in itself creates a problem also, a problem of worldview, a problem of communication, a problem of interaction. So these are some of the critical issues that we need to be dealing with. And I'm just raising this issue to let you see exactly how important it is for the teacher of English, for the researcher into English, in terms of the role that he or she plays in the development of Nigeria, in fact, in fostering a safe and secure society, in ensuring, for instance, that there is harmony and there is peace in this land, and that we must not undermine these, the level of involvement of these individuals. Now, Professor Esimaje asked, what does this forensic needs map look like? I think we should get to a point where among all the 500 or so languages in Nigeria, we are able to look at the phonological or pronunciation interference phenomena. We look at other phenomena that have to do with grammar, and how they interfere with the learning and speaking of English of these individuals, and reduce them into a GIS map or a book, an index that is a reference material for language teachers, where they can use. This can be a big project that this association approaches State Fund for, to say, give us money, we want to do this, so that we can reduce the classroom difficulties in teaching of English into a set of templates and parameters that teachers can draw on with examples and so on and so forth, in order to, and then with strategies also to intervene in the classroom. And then, of course, you can go ahead and produce resource materials, pronunciation, what do you call it, digital materials, that will help people in ameliorating some of these situations. So you can develop resource materials to assist, and then put them as open resources on the web, so people can use these materials. So personally, I don't like prescribing, but what I'm saying is that the languages themselves already prescribe for us. The reality of new Englishes are there, but what we are having is a language breakdown in Nigeria. It's no longer a case of we are having problem with literacies. We are having problem with the use of English at every level, and it has speculated from the lower level. Now we are seeing it even affecting elites. Now let me even give you one. I hope do you know that there are some universities now where Senate meetings are conducted in local languages? They are just speaking the local language. Where departments of English, actually, you find people teaching English and lapsing into their indigenous languages and teaching English. I have personally noticed the situation where people are teaching English, and then of course, before you know what is happening, they are speaking the local language. It doesn't help in terms of quality instruction. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Advantage position as the compared to ask a question. I know emphasis has been now on Africa.
This thing is freezing. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
They will come up. Is their network from there? They will come up.
Okay. Okay.
Hello, Prof. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm just waiting to hear you because I can't hear you. I'm here, but you are frozen. I can see you, but with the mic, but there is no. Aha! Now you're probably back.
Okay, you can see me with the mic. Okay, do I go through my question again?
Yes, please.
Hello?
Yes, please.
When you started your presentation, you suggested that we should critique theories and that we should adapt them to our situations, our settings.
Yes.
And I observe that most conferences now, especially on
It's frozen again.
what our roles should be as teachers of English in developing this indigenous.
Sorry, unfortunately, it's been broken, so I can't follow the question.
Okay. Prof, is it possible that you?
I can't hear you anymore.
You should change over to audio. Just join with audio.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll go to the question again.
Okay.
I remember that you mentioned critiquing of foreign theories and adapting them to local environment.
The problem is not from my end. I don't think this problem is from my end, though. I think it's probably from your end.
So I wanted to throw more light on the roles of teachers of English in developing African indigenous knowledge systems. The roles that we are expected to play. Did you get?
Yes, I think I got the part of it that we should the language teachers, what role should they play in developing African indigenous knowledge systems? Let me be frank. I need to think a bit about that, because that's a very wide question. I don't know if it's something that the teacher should actually do. The teacher should actually be more concerned about the innovation. But when you talk about the teacher researcher or the researcher
I'll
teacher,
private chat you.
Okay, please. I think you should private chat me. Yes, and then I can.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm here.
Are joining virtually. We expect that you are going to join again in the next 30 minutes. We are going to reconvene from 12:30. Please, you can disengage now and join us later. Join us precisely 12:30. The second keynote speaker. And 12:30, please.
Ètí mo gbé sí ló fà. Láàbí slide lẹ́lẹ́ control. Ìfẹ́ ṣọ́. No. No. But kó tẹ̀ fún mi ní gbogbo àwọn speakers àti gbogbo summary ẹgbẹ́. Okay o. Hello? Ìyẹn wà ní báyìí.